Jambo Rafiki, I'm Elizabeth from Kasiwa 82, and I hope you are doing really well. If you're new to my channel, welcome, and if you've been here before, welcome back. It's Tuesday, TBR Tuesday, so we're going to be talking about books today. So I'm a person who puts a whole bunch of stuff on hold at my library. I'm a heavy library system user. I read, as I've said previously, in all kinds of format, physical books as well as ebooks and audiobooks. And so what happens to me, and I don't know if it happens to you, is I end up putting a bunch of stuff on hold. They show up when they show up, and then I'm never quite sure what's in the bag when I bring the bag home. So I figured as I'm looking at what's in my bag, I'd go ahead and bring you along for the ride so we can kind of be surprised together. The first book I have here is one that I've already started reading, and this is Winter by Allie Smith. It's the second book in her seasonal quartet. I'm reading this along with a group of people. The group read along is hosted by Sarah of Hardcover Hearts, and I'll leave a link to her channel down below. I've had a lot of conversations already on the channel about Allie Smith, and we'll be talking more about her a little over halfway through this one, and I'm enjoying this one, even though the writing is kind of fragmented. One of the things that is on my list in 2021 is to actually read more essay collections. I tend to read a lot of nonfiction, but I don't stay up to date on some of the essay collections out there, and I'd like to do more of that. So there'll be a video coming out about my 2021 goals, but one of the things is to actually read 6 essay collections this year. And I figured I'd start with The Best American Travel Writing, the 2020 edition, and Robert MacFarlane is the editor. So I've already started reading this. This is one that I'm actually reading aloud at home, and it's working really well. So we're about 6-7 essays, I think, through this one already, and so far, really good. So again, it's about an essay or two every other day or every day. That's how this is going. So that's going to take me a little time to get through. This book is really heavy. It's Solutions and Other Problems by Allie Brosh. Now, I've read, I think, Hyperbole. I think that's the name of her book. That Hyperbole and a Half that I read, and I liked. I didn't love it as much as many other people seem to have, but I figured I would try her new book. And it's a comic, and it looks like it's got these wonderful colors. So I'm interested to kind of dive into this one. Although why this book is this heavy, I'm not quite sure. So Solutions and Other Problems by Allie Brosh. We'll see how that one looks. Next up, the Paris Review is a website that I go to and take a look at every now and then. And I don't subscribe to their newsletter or their magazine, but they have these collected works that they put out in book form. And this one is called Object Lessons. The Paris Review presents the art of the short story. And again, one of the things that I'm doing this year is actually trying to read more short story collections as well. I'm not a huge short story fan, and I think part of it is just I don't have enough of them under my belt. So again, my goal in 2021 is to read about 6 short story collections, and I figured I might as well start here. I mean, there's some really great people in this collection, so I figured, why not give that a try. So next up, I have Earthlings. It's a novel by Sayaka Murata. I hope I'm saying that right. I read her earlier book, The Convenience Store Woman. It's a very slim novel, and this one's rather slim too. I ended up really enjoying the themes explored in that novel, and so I've heard really mixed reviews about this one though. So I'm curious to see what I'll think about this. But this is translated from the Japanese and by Ginny, Tapley, Takemori. So I'd be curious if anyone's read this one, what your thoughts were, because as I said, I'm hearing really, either people are loving it or they're really detesting it. So I'm curious about that one. The other 2021 goal that I have is to actually read more poetry. I've begun to add more poetry collections into rotation in the last several years, and I'm really loving some of the ones that I read. And this is Margaret Atwood's new one called Dearly. It's new poems. So again, my objective with poems is sometimes I get them, sometimes I don't, but that's not the point. I'm trying to get through 6 collections this year. And what I tend to do with poetry is I read one quickly, and then I go back and reread it, because I kind of have a sense of what that poem's about. So then I can let the language and the imagery kind of sit with me. And I tend to only read one poem at a time. I think one of the mistakes I've made with poetry as well as with short story collections is actually read them too quickly. And so I don't give enough time between the different poems or between the different short stories for them to actually settle. So Margaret Atwood's new collection, and I'm looking forward to that one. I love the color of this, the cover of this one, right? So this is Kusama, the graphic novel by Elisa Macellari. Now, for some reason, I thought that this was a Japanese graphic novel, and it actually looks like it's translated from the Italian by, where is that? Edward Fortis, I think. And again, I love the cover. I really don't have any idea of what this is about, other than I believe I read somewhere that it might be a graphic memoir. I'm not sure, but I love the color of the art, and I'm looking forward to diving into this one. Now the last three in this particular stash are pretty heavy books. So Peter Mendelsund is an author. I've read another of his books that I really loved, is the idea of when you're reading, I can't remember the title of the book, but when you're reading, what's happening in your head when you're actually reading. Let's see if they tell me what the other title is. Doesn't look like it. But this one is called The Look of the Book. And it's about the covers. Now, Jhumpa Lahiri has a really short book, non-fiction book about, I think it's called The Clothing of Books, if I'm not mistaken. It's all about, there's a huge difference between what's within the pages of the covers in terms of the story and the writing and whether we resonate with that or not. And then there is the actual cover art. And sometimes the cover art depicts really well what's on the inside of the book, and sometimes it doesn't. So I, for example, am not a big fan of covers that get re-released with pictures of actors when the book has been adapted. I just am not a fan of that. So I'm interested to see, for example, My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. I really did not like the American covers. I have no idea why they picked those particular covers. Not a fan of those. So I'm really looking forward to this one. This, I think, again, is another book I'm going to be dipping in and out of. I've got several of those here, kind of dipping in and out of collections. But this just sounds really great, and I'm looking forward to it. I have a picture book called Pool by Ji-Hyeon Lee. And the back says, for those who want to swim freely in the world. Now, I think I picked this up because I love the art. I saw somewhere the art in this book, and I just thought, okay, this is just really fantastic. So this is, again, a translated work. Let me see if it says where it's translated from. I don't, originally published in South Korea. And it's got, kind of a really light touch, as opposed to these big, when you see children's picture books, they tend to have a lot of really bold colors, and this one has more subtle, muted colors. And I'm really loving the look of this. So I'm excited to jump into that one. And finally, although this might be the one that I'm most excited about. So Alexander von Humboldt is an explorer who has a lot of things named after him. And he's not someone that's talked about as much until, I would say, recent, in the last decade or so, when people started rediscovering what this man had done for the science community and for the scientific understanding of how we believe or now understand that the world is an interconnected web of all these different things. And I've been meaning to read a biography on him, and I know Andrea Wulf, who is one of the authors, who is the author in this book, has got a biography of him that actually looks really fascinating. I think it's called The Invention of Nature, and that's on my TBR as well. But this one I couldn't resist. When I saw that she had a illustrated biography of the man, it looks like it's illustrated by Lillian Melcher. I mean, okay, so let me show you what some of the inside looks like. It's a biography of von Humboldt and kind of what he did, kind of, I mean, this is really fun. So I know very little about him. I kind of have a passing knowledge of his discoveries and his contributions to science. So I'm really excited to dig into this one first, kind of to get an overview of the man and his life and his works and his contributions, and then dive into the full biography by the same author. Right? I'm really excited about this. So those are all the books that came in my most recent library haul, if you will, and I'm looking forward to diving into them. I'd be really curious if you have read any of these, what your thoughts are, and if any of them actually sound really interesting to you and you'll be picking them up as well. I would love to know. I would love to know what you're reading, and until I talk to you next time, happy reading. Bye.